Hey, we're back, and I'm your host, BKP, and we're beautiful downtown Blue Ridge at Sycamore Crossing, and we're glad to have back with us. We hope Dr. Tidman's doing well, but we have back with us this morning Dr. William Whaley. How you doing, Dr. Whaley?
I'm great. I appreciate Ray being here last week, but he's got a guest in town, and I had to come back early for the funeral of one of the finest men you'll ever know, John Horney, who was captain of Notre Dame's defense in 1966. Said to be the meanest guy, pound for pound, to ever play for him in Ara Parsegian's book. Was on the golf course Sunday, hitting a few practice balls and fell over suddenly dead. He'd had a normal cardiac catheterization a few weeks before, just routinely done. He was a big man, not a fat man, an athlete. Everybody just loved John, and nobody thought that anything could ever happen to him. 71, I'm 77, and at his wake on Wednesday night and funeral yesterday, there were thousands of people there who looked at one another and said, grab every day, be happy for today, and the fact that you're here, and go give your kids a hug and everything. And that's what John would want us to take out of this, except to say we're all vulnerable. I mean, you know, one of us could fall over sitting here right now, and it's important to, you know, live your life the right way, so that you left it better than when you got here. Now, you got started off on talking about Bill Clinton going to North Korea, and he was real busy. I had sent you an email this morning while you were probably here. Don't need to open it up.
I thought I was just.
But it's the tax return for 2015 and 2014 for the Clinton Foundation. That 3% of that $180 million, they got 30 million more in 15 or 16 than they did in 15, went to charity, and they had 500 employees or something. It's just awful, and it's my lead-in to why the Democrats gave the trophy. I think that everybody really believes that the Democrats do run Washington. They do not have the representatives in the Congress, the White House, or the Senate. But what they have is 80 to 90% of the bureaucracy are Democrats. And they're there to establish regulations and keep things going, and the leaks are coming out. And that's really that Democratic glacier that it took a long time for Reagan and so forth to move that glacier. He did get the glacier moved, but I'm worried about that glacier crushing Karen Handel and crushing our great president and crushing Johnny Isakson and crushing the rest of those people. And I don't know that anything we can do about it except be alert, be aware. I mean, we can treat our Democratic friends nicely and hope for the best, I guess.
Well, you know, there's an anger, and it's translating into something that's it's just not good. I mean, you know, early on, I want to get to our medical questions, but early on, you would hear a little talk about, would this end up people so angry you would see bloodshed, and obviously no, I don't want to see that, and wondering. And some people say, well, it might be on the right, but interesting enough, the people that seem to have something, it was just interesting, gun control, and that a gun is what shot Scalise. So,
well, I've said another thing about that. You know, I do have a lot of trauma experience. He was probably less than 20 minutes to 30 minutes from dead when he arrived at that trauma hospital. And
that's what I wanted to ask you.
And what that tells you, you know, the great advances that are made in trauma are made in wartime. And this was a war wound with a war weapon and a war round, and it hit him in the pelvis.
So you say he was about 30 minutes.
Yeah, I would have said it could have been 10. It could have been 10 because he was bleeding badly. He had lost consciousness. He had originally complained when they got to him of being thirsty. They gave him some Gatorade, and he had very low blood pressure. They started 3 IVs to resuscitate him. But when they said that he'd been shot in the pelvis, you think about getting shot in the fanny, which is all meat, you know, and everybody jokes about the guy that got shot in the fanny. But when you hit the pelvis and shatter the pelvis, you can cut the bladder, the urethra, the veins, the arteries, the ureters to the kidneys, and even though it's not your liver and it's not your lung, you can bleed out in 5 minutes, 15 minutes, and the degree of on the baseball field resuscitation that was given to him by a combat medic that was a congressman who had been a combat medic in Iraq, and they put a tourniquet on there with his belt, and they were able to slow the bleeding down. But if you listen to the on the scene reports, there was a huge amount of blood on the ground, so he bled out a lot of his blood volume, and this was he would have died in a few more minutes if those Capitol Police hadn't been able to shut it down. Nobody would have been able to get to him. So that's just a testament to our trauma care now in this country.
I hear he's doing well. I mean,
yeah,
progressing.
Well, yeah,
no,
yeah,
he's not
yes.
out of critical
No,
condition.
he's going in the right direction.
He's going in the right direction.
For a young, healthy Marine, and that's exactly what he is. As a young, healthy man like a Marine, it's kind of hard to kill them if you can get them into trauma care. Once they're in trauma care, you can support their blood volume and support their respirations, and he should get better. Anyhow, I didn't want to get off on that, but it's always good that we did. I want you to go in any direction that you want to go, but if you really want today to talk about some of the abuses of the press system as it relates to medical stuff and the fear and frightfulness, we ought to stick to that FAT question that's in there. Read that FAT question, and then let me try to put some perspective on what I think is too much National Enquirer.
Well, I guess when you tell me to go any direction I want and then tell me to read the FAT question, I'm trying to figure out where my choice was.
You could go to grapefruit. I'm not going to gallbladder. We did that the previous week.
I'm thinking the same thing. I'll tell you what. Let's go to that one second, just for the reason I don't want to. I think maybe this one you can answer quickly, and the second one you're going to probably have to spend some time on. And this is my question. I did not know this, but I'm going to tell you, if I was writing a question for you, grapefruit. I love grapefruit juice. Absolutely, I love grapefruits. I mean, I will get grapefruits, but some prescriptions say, do not. Does it interfere? And I think the one for the most part is blood pressure or cholesterol medicine, blood pressure medicine. I don't remember the ones, but it'll say grapefruit.
Okay. All right. First of all, the concept is that certain chemicals activate a system within the liver called the P450 system, which we've known about for decades. It's divided into three parts: one that speeds the metabolism of drugs, and one that inhibits the metabolism of drugs, and then one that increases the absorption of drugs, and that can be induced by thousands of chemicals. Grapefruit just happens to be one. Drugs like phenobarbital and erythromycin can be others. In terms of practicality, grapefruit juice doesn't mess up Advil or aspirin or Tylenol or anything else, and that's why when you pick up your drug from the pharmacy, if you're taking a cardiac rhythm drug, which you're not, if you are taking certain psychiatric drugs, which you should probably be on but aren't taking, that's a joke. Did you like that one?
No, I've seen the smile from across.
If you're taking vitamin A for any particular reason, then yeah, read those things when you get them. Sometimes you get them, you think they're like an insurance policy that's just giving you everything there could be. But when you get to that part about what you should know, that's pretty quickly up at the top. But grapefruit juice does interfere in two ways. It increases the metabolism so that the drug effectiveness is less of certain categories of drugs, or it diminishes the metabolism of the drug so that the blood level can be toxically high. But those drugs are not drugs that are common. One of them is isoniazid that you might be taking for tuberculosis. One of them is methotrexate, people take for rheumatoid arthritis or for psoriasis. One of them is cocaine, which I hope you are not taking. Tylenol to a very minor degree. Alcohol also does that, and other foods do that. So yes, grapefruit juice, because it's basically the extracted juice rather than a whole grapefruit, because the amounts are different. But there's no blanket rule you can stick in the back of your head, because some make the drugs less effective, some make them too high in the blood level and they can be toxic. So you need to read what comes with prescription drugs. In terms of over-the-counter herbs, Tylenol and so forth, I've already told you to stay away from the herbs because you don't know much about them. And Tylenol, if you stay in that safe range of a couple thousand milligrams a day, then you don't have to worry about the grapefruit. Now lastly is the statins. Everybody says it may interfere with Lipitor. If it interferes with statins at all, and the evidence is not good that it does, it's to a tiny percentage. And once you've gone and you've gotten your blood tests 2 to 6 months after you've started the drugs, they have measured the effect that the statin is having on your cholesterol, and they've measured your liver to make sure it's not doing anything bad. And they're going to continue to do that every 6 to 12 months. So if you're drinking the same amount of orange juice at your first grapefruit juice, you could keep it up for the next few blood tests. Is that easy enough?
That works. But
I can do it a lot more complicated. No.
All right. Okay. To track how much fat I eat each day, should I focus on grams, calories, or a percentage? How would you track fat?
Okay. Well, first of all, I think that's a great question. Everybody knows that there's three blocks of nutrition. Carbohydrates, so that's donuts, but it's also English peas and potatoes. Protein, that's big old greasy steaks and hamburger, but it's also fish and chicken and lean meat. And lastly, fat, and fat's a big category. The number of calories in a gram of carbohydrate and of protein, Sam, write this down, is 4.5 calories in a gram of carbohydrate or protein. It's 9 grams in a gram of fat. So if you are, you've got to be quantitative. If you are going to try and have a healthy diet, it's going to be about 1/3 fat, about 1/3 carbohydrate, and about 1/3 protein. And people who are vegetarians and who are on meat-restricted diets get that protein from lentils and beans and things of that sort. So if you happen to be a calorie counter, and that's the easiest, I think, because if you're thinking grams, you got to keep doing, fat's got twice as many calories in a gram than carbohydrates and protein do, and you got to go back and forth. But if you're saying, I weigh, like Sam over there, I won't say what Sam weighs, but if Sam weighs 120 pounds, she's burning up 1,200 calories a day sitting at that computer. If she's moderately active, she adds 25% calories to that, which is 300. That gets her to 1,500 calories a day. And if she does a lot of house cleaning and so forth, she can add another 300, and that's it. That's 1,800 calories a day. So if she wants to have a careful, healthy diet, she gets 600 fat calories, she gets 600 carbohydrate calories, and she gets 600 protein calories. So it's easier there to do the caloric measurement. But what I wanted to do after I got out of that is get into where I'm concerned about the hype. On Tuesday, there was an article that got a lot of press if you're online, and got as far as about the 3rd or 4th page of many community newspapers. 3 servings of French fries a week is associated with a 100% increase in sudden death. My God. I mean, how many people do you know that eat French fries 3 times a week? Now that's kind of scary, isn't it? Are you scared?
No, I was looking at somebody in the background that raised their hand to that answer.
I know who eats more than 3
Yeah,
Okay. Well, what this whole thing about that, this is an overkill of a study that really doesn't focus on the French fries at all. This study took 50,000 patients with arthritis and followed them for 10 years. And as part of that arthritis study, they had activity levels and how well they slept. And I've talked about this before when we talked about glucosamine and chondroitin, how these studies are done. But part of that was a dietary thing. How many servings of alcohol do you have a week? How many servings of this? How many servings of that? Well, they were focusing on potatoes. And what they discovered was that potatoes don't affect at all your mortality rate. It's if you deep fat fry them. And then that gets you right back into the 30 grams of fat. It's the trans fat. Now, what's a trans fat? If you pick up a stick of margarine and it's a stick of margarine, it'll stand up on its own and it's not soft in a tub, that's trans fat, throw it away. Any of the cookies, cakes, or things that you purchase that have been manufactured and you buy at a supermarket, that's got trans fats in it unless it's labeled no trans fats, and they're coming to that. Throw that away, and then you're okay with the other fats. So what's non-trans fats? That's the soft margarine, that's butter, that's canola type oil, that's olive oil, and to a lower degree, soybean oil. Okay, we're worried about the fats. We were just talking about taking the Lipitor and the grapefruit juice. Yesterday there's an article, statins associated with an increased risk of Parkinson's disease. So wait a minute. You just got through telling me that these French fries are going to double my chances of dying a sudden death over here. You just got through telling me that I can have canola oil and I can have this, but I got to take my Lipitor to keep my fats down. And now you're telling me that the statin drugs are associated with Parkinson's disease. I mean, I'm confused. What am I supposed to do? Is that the way you feel?
Yeah.
I hope you're confused.
Yeah.
I want you to be confused.
Yes, exactly.
Please be confused.
I don't know which one.
Say yes. Just say yes.
Yes, I'm confused.
All right. Now, here's the study. About 22,000 people a year in the United States are diagnosed with Parkinson's disease. And we all know some. They're older and they have the movement disorder. There are 500,000 Parkinson's patients in the United States. So what does that tell you? It's a disease of older people, and 10% of Parkinson's people die every year to be replaced by the 55,000,
right.
By the 22,000 new ones. So 22,000 new ones a year. So here's what they did. They studied 50 million insurance claims to find 22,000 Parkinson's patients, and then 2,000 of those Parkinson's patients had been newly diagnosed, and then they matched them with age, race, weight, occupation matched controls, how much they smoked and everything else out of these 50 million insurance claims. And they discovered that the patients who had high cholesterol levels, listen to this carefully now, high cholesterol levels had a lower incidence of Parkinson's disease. So Parkinson's was associated with an increased level of blood fats. So what happened was that if you give these statin drugs to lower the cholesterol, and then you put those people in this clinical trial, when you take all the folks that had a lower cholesterol level from taking the statin drugs for a while, you artificially increase the number that have Parkinson's disease. So there is no clear-cut evidence that taking the statin causes the Parkinson's disease, the whole match seems to be what your cholesterol level was before you got to the time you took the statin drug. The recommendations of the people who did the study were continue taking statin drugs, because you're only talking about 22,000 Parkinson's patients per year being diagnosed, when you've got 4 or 5 million people with heart disease and stroke that you're preventing by taking the statin drug. Was that too confusing? But I was trying to get to that.
No, it was confusing, but I think what I would like to ask, it was confusing. So what I'd like to ask on that is, when they put these studies out, how do we judge them when they just come out with headlines that I just say are not indicating what actually the study was about?
What is that phrase I keep hearing you use?
I don't know.
Fake news.
Oh, okay. Is that
okay?
So that happens in medical studies?
Stuff. You take a long speech given, a long inquisition given of a very prominent, well-meaning ex-senator, ex-attorney general before the Congress, who talks with a Southern accent, and that total tape, I think, is 3 hours and 26 minutes or something. And then you pull out about 8 5 to 10 second sound bites that say, I don't recall, I don't remember, then you clamp them all together and you hang the entire thing on, I don't recall, I don't remember.
Right, exactly.
That's fake news.
And there's 3 hours of testimony on
3 hours and 18
something.
minutes
Right.
or something.
And
this lasts like 90 seconds.
Okay.
Okay, now the study is going to be 18 pages of single-space typewritten science, where one line says that the group of people who were taking the statin drugs had a higher incidence of Parkinson's disease than the group that weren't taking it, or the guys who were taking eating the grapefruit and taking a heart rhythm disturbance drug got terribly toxic and died because the grapefruit juice screwed up the metabolism of the drug. And they focus on one line.
There's really nothing new here. I have looked at those medical studies, and it's page after page, and it really gets in the weeds, and somebody like yourself understands when you get to page 12. I personally do not. But they come out of the box with that first paragraph.
I got to tell you, it's dangerous. My wife is dangerous, and she'll be here later. She is dangerous, because if
I thought we were going to get you out of here without getting in trouble.
If you stand in the line at the checkout, and of course they don't let you stand in line checkout anymore now. They get new people in there, because if they don't, you'll go to another grocery store. You've got the National Enquirer, and you got the whatever the rest of them are called there, and there'll be just a little blurb right there about I'll give you another one that's there now that probably is true. Coffee and herbal tea help prevent Alzheimer's. Well, that came out of a huge, great big study, but that little line right there might be true. But it doesn't give you anything about or like where the information really comes from. They're going to give you a short, hysterical thing inside there.
That really doesn't catch my attention. Where Elvis was last seen catches my attention.
Okay.
But
anyway,
wait, I've got.
I know you got to move on.
No,
but 3 servings of French fries a week, doubling your risk of sudden death, is true.
Okay, that's what I wanted to get back to. Right. With all the confusing things out there, someone like myself has to bring it back into the
French fries.
Yeah, French fries.
All right, good.
So I had to know before we left where we were at with French fries. I couldn't leave without knowing about the
with the French fries.
3 servings a week.
We're back to that stick of margarine. If you can hold up a stick of margarine, it's a stick of margarine. You got to throw it away. If you want to go down here and get you a bear claw at the bakery down at the grocery store, you better make sure it says no trans fats on it. Otherwise, leave it there. Anything that's deep fat fried's got trans fats on it. So it's not the potato. It's the trans fat that fried it, and it's true.
Okay, I've got to give you
one serving a week. I'll let you have
1 a week and a tab. Can I have a tab with the fries?
Have a tab with it, yeah.
Okay, I want to give you a final thought because, folks, we have a full show today, and I'm excited because as soon as we come back after we're finished with this segment, we're going to be talking Lake Blue Ridge Civic Association, and we're going to be doing that right after this break. So don't forget, we're in Blue Ridge, Georgia here, Sycamore Crossing. What is Dr. Whaley's you always have something. You leave on something every week. What have you brought for us here in some of those notes that maybe we didn't get to or you want to leave on? No, I better not say what some of those notes you didn't get to. This is a show. you folks, he brings the notes.
I'm going to go back to the way we started. And that is that I heard one of the members of the House who was not didn't get a lot of press time was a Georgia congressman who was standing up with a bat in his hand when the gunfire started. He was a designated hitter for the Republicans, and that's enough. And he said, we need to go back what it says in the Bible. And I guess that's why you didn't hear him, because it said what you need to go back to what it said in the Bible. And that was love your neighbor as yourself. We've got to find some way to get back to the love your neighbor as yourself, whether he's a Republican or a Democrat, he's from up north or he's from down south, or he's a Scotch drinker or he's not, and get back to human decency, because if it keeps going this way, it's a mess. Now that's got nothing to do with the fact that all 80% of the bureaucrats are Democrats and all that, but I mean, if we can just get back to where we shake hands, come out fighting, and then end the game like they do at the Stanley Cup, where the teams shake hands as they leave, that's we're better off.
I like to see them arguing over an idea of which way is best to move the country forward instead of some of the things that are actually hearing. And I couldn't agree with you, and you know I could keep going on that. You're welcome to stay around for the All-Star panel if you'd like at 9 o'clock. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to be talking with the Lake Blue Ridge Civic Association, and we're in Blue Ridge, Georgia every Friday morning at Sycamore Crossing. Sam, take us a break. Thank you, Dr. Whaley.